Welcome back to my channel. Glad to have you here. And today we're going to be discussing books to read that have unique plot, unique stories, and books that are really going to get you into reading. Now, I thought of this video because previously I had made a video about how to get back into reading in 2025. And now that hopefully you're convinced to get back into reading this year, I'm going to give you 5 amazing book recommendations with unique plots that I'm sure will get you back into the reading groove. First book we have is In Such Tremendous Heat by Kehinde Fadipe, and this is an amazing story if you want to about women, about them discovering themselves, and it also has a really unique premise. So it's based around the story of 3 women. You've got Dara, who is a very ambitious lawyer. You have Amaka, yeah, that's her name. Amaka, who is quite a spontaneous, person, could be described as irresponsible. Actually, no, check that. She's definitely a bit irresponsible, but she's the spontaneous, like very extroverted friend. And then you have Lillian, who is suffering from a bit of a depression. Her marriage is failing. She's got a lot of trauma behind that as well, that is keeping her in this very solemn place. And all these 3 characters are linked together by a character that comes into their lives named Lani, who is a man who reminds them, or they have a relationship with in some sort of way. Without spoiling too much, I will say I really love how their stories intertwine, and I really like how it's not all centered around the guy. Usually when you see a book set up with this, like, multiple female leads and then one male lead, it's always like a fight to get the guy, but that's not how it ends up. Their stories are a lot more complex, and it's not like your typical, like, oh, I'm into this guy relationship. Each one of these characters has a very different relationship to this man, which leads to them finding each other and leads to a blossoming friendship, as well as some revelations in their own stories and recognizing the deeper parts of themselves which they've been trying to like hide, or they've dug away for such a long time. And so as you follow these characters, you see their true like nature being revealed, you see revelations happen, and it's a really great story for anyone who's interested in like it's a great piece of young fiction. It's very, I feel like the writing is amazing. Fadipe, she does an amazing job at writing the story. Oh, and the premise is really, really interesting as well. Like, the women are all Nigerian, but they're like based in Singapore, which was just like, it's such a random combination. I know Singapore is like the #1 like place for expats, but when I heard that these were about 3 Nigerian women in Singapore, I was just like, I actually need to pick this up. Like, this is really interesting. So not only are there interesting like relationships and characters, you've also got a really interesting background and like a really interesting context as to where they are in their world. So definitely recommend, 5-star read, amazing book. Second book is This Lovely City by Louise Hare, and this is another amazing read. So essentially this is about the main character Laurie, who is a Caribbean immigrant, part of the Windrush generation, and how he's settling into life in London, his relationship with Evie, him trying to find community, and also balancing his life as at day being a postman and by night being a musician. And this book is really amazing because there are multiple plots happening, but once again, Hare does a really good job of like intertwining all these stories into one. And it's in a way that I feel like a lot of the time when you see relationships in stories, they're sort of like separate from the main plot. They're just sort of like, and I really don't like that because like it sort of distracts from the main plot. Like, I just want to get into the story and the relationship acts as a distractor. In this one, the story between Laurie and Evie, the female lead, is really central to the plot, and it actually like it has an amazing twist. Even though Laurie is the main character, Evie's story was the thing that really got me hooked. It's so interesting to see the dynamic between her mother, who is white, and Evie, who is mixed. And you see this relationship evolve and evolve into until it becomes a bit more twisted. There's a really like good twist in the end relating to like this mystery which has been happening in the background. Essentially, Rathbone, the surgeon, he's investigating the Caribbean community because a baby has been found dead. And oh my gosh, the ending. I was not expecting it at all. But very much recommend. I'm not gonna spoil anymore. I really want you guys to enjoy reading this. But definitely a wonderful book. Great romance, great plot, a lovely homage to the Windrush generation as well. So definitely would recommend. Third up on the roster is The Inheritance by Sheena Kalayil. This book, once again, 5-star read, amazing. And the plot is, the plot might put you off a bit, but I promise you this is definitely something you want to read. So essentially, this book follows the journey of Rita and her first years of adulthood. And essentially, the book starts off with the premise of Rita actually being in an affair with Ben, her professor, which sounds really creepy, and I can't lie, it did turn me off a bit when I was first reading the book. But like, then something like really sudden happened and Ben dies along with his wife. And then you sort of see this like beautiful character development. I don't know how to describe it, but like you see Rita meet Francis, Ben's brother, and she goes to Lisbon to sort of like, I'm not sure, Francis really wants to help her, but it turns out, how do I explain this without spoiling anything? Oh, this is such a good book. But she goes to Lisbon on like the first step of her healing journey, and then she goes to India, where like this inner healing, inner revelations, self-development really happens. And again, I know the premise of the book sounds a bit off, but it's such a beautiful story about like self-discovery, adulthood, coming to grips with the darker part of yourselves. Because like I said, this book did start off with her being part of an affair, essentially being someone's mistress and engaging in the betrayal of Ben's wife. That is something that would stereotypically seen as bad, but like it's explored in a way that makes her feel so human. And I also love like the cultural influences, like the way like Zimbabwe and India's history and cultures, as well as like European cultures and Southern African cultures, are like intertwined into this book. It creates so much depth because it adds so much context to what's happening, and it really makes the world really feel alive. I think my favorite part about this book was honestly Rita's story. It's really heartwarming to see her go from like guilt to like grief to like self-discovery and healing, and seeing her like heal through dance and like build her self-confidence up again. It is definitely a read that I would definitely recommend. It is very good. Please don't let the plot turn you off. I promise you it's a really good read, so give it a try. Next up, we've got The Flirt by Kathleen Tessaro. And once again, this is a really great twist on the romance genre. I typically don't like romance just because I feel like it has a lot of like tired tropes, and I don't feel like a lot of like books or like authors like write relationships very well. But oh my gosh, this romantic comedy really did put a twist on the entire genre. Like the idea of flirting being a profession, it honestly leaves a lot of way for like a lot of comedy, and it really will. This book will make you laugh out loud. There were so many funny moments in this book. It's based around like Hughie is the main character. He's an apprentice flirt in training. I would also mark out 3 other main characters as well. There's Letitia, who is sort of like the masquerading like seamstress. Then there's also Olivia, who was cheated on by her rich husband, and she's also a culture enthusiast. And then you've got, oh, what's her name? Rose. Okay, her name is Rose. And then you've got Rose, who used to be a waiter, but is waiter turned artist, all by accident. And as you can tell, all these personalities leave a lot of room for like comedic moments. I absolutely loved reading this. It was so funny. I finished this in a day. It was really, really good. And I would totally recommend, if you want something a bit more unique, especially in the romance genre. Like I said before, I feel like the tropes can get a bit tiring after a while. But sorry, not Elegance. Elegance is another book Tessaro has written. The Flirt is really, really good. Totally recommend. Very funny. And then last but certainly not least is On Beauty by Zadie Smith. Now I actually have not finished this book. I'm actually just about like halfway through. But like I had to give it a mention because it has been so good so far. And you wouldn't expect it either. Like when you read the blurb, you feel like this is going to be like a very much like a book about conflict between two families, the Belsies and the Kips. But when you start reading, it's a lot more than that. You get so many, you sort of like follow the journey of like multiple different characters within the Kipsy family. Not Kipsy, sorry, the Belsey family. And it's really interesting to see how all these like stories like sort of like, you know, how all of them sort of like intertwine, and how each of the young characters, despite being in the same house and in the same family, sort of like evolve and change over time as they learn about themselves and they learn about the world. um and I really like how Zadie, she's not afraid of like demonstrating her character's flaws. I can find so many flaws in each one of these characters, but that's what makes them so like realistic and so relatable, is that you can love this character but also see parts of themselves that you really don't like. It's almost like being a part of the family in a sense. So main members of the Belsey family, there's Howard, who's a professor, and he's a bit like uptight, a bit theoretical, a bit I can't lie, he's not really a character that I like too much. And then there's Kiki, his wife. Oh my gosh, she is such like, seeing her like sort of like rediscover herself, that has been amazing to read, and I can't wait to see how her story ends. Then there's the children, there's Zora, who Zora is a little more similar to her father, but a bit more likable. She's very headstrong, very confident, I would say, or at least she feigns confidence. And then there's Levi, who again, he's sort of having this identity crisis of like, what does it mean to be black, especially as a mixed person who's grown up in the suburbs. Like, what does it mean to be black? How does black manifest himself? And he's got some pretty like wrong misconceptions about what it means to be black. But like, once again, I'm very excited to see how this is explored. And then you have Jerome, the oldest of the three children, and honestly, I haven't seen much of him because he's been out of town. He's back in town now though. At the point I'm currently reading, so it'll be nice to like see more of him, see more of like how he fits into the family. But oh my gosh, he had, I'm not gonna spoil too much, but he had such a lovely like monologue about how much he loves his siblings. When I read that, I just looked at my sister and I was just like, oh, how cute. I looked at my sister and brother, I just thought, damn, it perfectly sums up a sibling relationship, if you know what I'm saying. But anywho, that wasn't a very good like digest of how good the book is. But like I said, I haven't finished it. I'm just sort of rambling because it's such a good book, and I'm honestly like, there's so many things I want to say about it, but like until I finish the book, it's all just speculation. But definitely give this a read. Honestly, it's very good. Okay, and those are your 5 books to read if you want to get into reading in 2025. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you try out all of these books. Let me know how you feel about them if you do get to reading them. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.